welcome to Books Unbound, the podcast where we unbind books to get to their hearts with your hosts, us. It's Ariel and
Ruben or Raylene, whatever.
Depends on how you're feeling.
Depends on the day. Feeling
how
Ruben-y
whimsical
today.
are you feeling? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, bit of whimsy.
I am currently in Halifax, recording away from my office. And so there's going to be two things going on. Number one, that's why this is a totally different background, but if you're watching the video version. But secondly, if you're listening only to the audio version, you will probably hear massive amounts of wind outside because the only place I could film where it looked good was in front of this window, and we're in the middle of a weather warning because there's a giant wind moment happening. It was so interesting because I've never seen a weather warning just for wind. Like,
yeah, that's kind of scary.
it's gonna rain a little bit, but it's not really a rain situation. It's just wind, and it's true. Like, the trees are whipping around. It's gonna go up to like 100 kilometers an hour, which is really fast. Like, that's kind of similar to when we had a hurricane.
Yeah.
So anyhow, if you hear wind, that's what's happening.
It's just a little wind
now
moment.
you know. Just a little window moment. But yeah, we're so excited. So basically, we're in the end game here, everyone. It's December 11th when we're recording this. And this is important because Raylene and I, we work all year to get to the end of the year episodes. There is a series of 4 episodes that we have to do for you guys. And they're the best episodes of the year. They're so much fun for us to film. We know that you guys like them the most as well. And so we're really excited about them. They're coming up soon. They are our wrap up where we talk about all of the books we read, all of our statistics. We have our Christmas haul and the one where we talk about the community stats and go over the giant survey that you guys fill out. And then there's the one where we do our goals and talk about our goals in 2024. So I think I said 4 episodes and I meant 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's 3. So in the lead up to that, we wanted to, well, this is what my thinking was, Raylene. I wanted to leave a little mystery.
Oh.
Because if the episode before the wrap up episode was an update episode,
That's
I thought there
true.
wasn't enough mystery.
That's funny. We
So
haven't talked about this, but we just decided.
This is why I told you we should do a community episode, and I think I forgot to tell you the reason.
It's a secret.
It was a secret reason, but also just because I like doing them.
Oh, yeah.
I was just
These
like,
are
let's
so
do
fun.
another one. And you were like, yeah, let's do it because they're fun. So we're doing a reading confessions episode. These are some episodes we've started doing recently. We love them so much, and it was a goal of ours to sort of launch some episodes this year that involved the community and the listeners a bit more.
Yeah.
And we had this fun idea to like do voice notes. We were like, we want people to send in voice notes. And then I was like, what if they sent us problems? And Raylene, we were like, we went with
sold.
this idea, right? We were so excited. We're like, this is going to be really fun. And then thing after thing happened. We kept not launching it. But now this is our 3rd one. And we're loving it. We're loving it.
hyped.
So we have 5 new clips from people that we're going to be responding to today. Very excited. We got some funny ones, some serious problems, readerly things we need to sort out. We also have an update from one of the people we helped. Well, I say helped. One of the people we gave advice to last week, or last episode. So that's going to be fun to listen to. Before that, I do just want to start off by saying, if you wanted to participate in our community reader survey, now is the time. So before we hit record on this episode, Raylene and I were like, did we set a deadline? We can't quite remember. But we're not recording this episode until right after Christmas. So you have until Christmas, basically, to fill out the survey, depending on when you're listening to this episode. You, I'm sure, still have plenty of time. So that will be linked in the description if you want to fill it out. It's a lot of fun. I added a lot of questions, Raylene.
Oh.
I added a lot of questions.
Okay, maybe I'll have to do the survey too.
I actually do think it's fun. I had like a lot of fun adding questions and being like, actually, I can just poll thousands of people. What
true.
do you think about this kind of booky thing? And what about this thing? And so I just asked people a lot of questions, and I'm excited to read over all of your answers.
Oh, that'll be fun.
So that's linked all over. And we keep losing power here, you guys. We just lost power again, really.
I heard something, yeah.
Yeah, it flickered. The energy flickered again because of this windstorm. So let's try and get through this episode. My God.
Let's go.
The first thing I think we should start with, it just flickered again.
Oh,
It's really
God.
scary.
We're 6 minutes in. This is great.
God. The first thing I will think we should listen to is this update from Jordan.
Yes.
Hello again from Australia. First of all, dying at Ariel's lies that she suggested I tell my colleague in order for them to stop giving me book recommendations. Loved it. So I do have an update. Basically, I think sending in this dilemma made me think about, well, actually this problem is kind of causing me a bit of like stress. So now is the time to deal with it. And what I did is I actually did kind of what Ariel said. I figured that this person, their like method of communication was through a note. So I wrote on the same note on the back and popped the book back on their desk. And I said, hey, thanks for thinking of me with this recommendation, but I've got so many books that I'm already really excited to read that I just have no idea when I would ever get to this. But thanks again. Didn't leave it open for more recommendations, just sort of shut it down then, and it's been a blissful few weeks. That was the problem. It wasn't so much people giving me recommendations verbally, because, you know, you could just say, oh yeah, sure, I'll get to it someday, and then just like never discuss it again. The other thing I wanted to say is I will definitely be staying strong. Thank you, Raylene, for that reminder. It's actually very useful because even though I know exactly what it is that I like to read, what I want to read, you still do feel guilty to read what people suggest to you, even though you know you're not probably going to like it. So thanks so much for responding. I was dying in my car on the way to the library. Love the podcast, and bye.
So, Jordan, thank you so much for sending this update, because that was so much fun to listen to. And my favorite part was actually right at the end when Jordan says, I was dying in the car on the way to the library, because I was like, this is a real person who's actually going to the place of work where they said they work and going to go face the characters that we were talking about. So much fun.
But yeah, it sounds like I think we did help Jordan. I mean, mainly you. It sounds like she really liked your lies, but didn't end up needing to use them, which was good. Like, I think.
Yeah, but she said she used the idea of using a note.
Yeah, I
like
think that's
responding
genius.
with a note. Yeah.
That's a very honorable thing to do, because it's just matching the energy, but also not, presenting any falsehoods, which is nice.
Yes. Yeah, the lying was more of entertainment for my fellow listeners. I'm glad you didn't go the lying route, but if it would have worked, there's white lies.
Yeah.
I think white lies are okay to protect people's feelings, so it would have been fine. But thank you, Jordan, for that update. I hope everyone enjoyed listening to that.
That was awesome.
And now we're going to jump into some of our new problems.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, let's start with Laura.
Hello, Ariel and Raylene. My name is Laura, and I live in Eastern Massachusetts. I got married about 2 years ago, and like me, my husband is also a really big reader. Our tastes overlap in some ways, but I tend to gravitate toward novels, whereas he prefers nonfiction. Here's my problem. I love the idea of us combining our bookshelves. I think it's romantic and beautiful for us to have a shared library full of books that reflect our shared love of reading. Unfortunately, my husband has freaking terrible aesthetic taste. He always manages to bring home the ugliest possible editions of the books that he buys, and I hate how they look on our shelves. So how can I pursue this goal of building a shared library for us while also creating something that looks beautiful? Help would be appreciated. Thanks so much. Bye.
Okay, Raylene. Laura has a big problem. I loved the way that Laura set it up, where she's like, here's the situation. I live in Eastern Massachusetts. I was like, okay, we've set the scene. This is a reader. This is a person who's like, I'm setting the scene. I married this husband of mine 2 years ago. I'm like, okay, so it's not a brand new marriage. Mm-hmm. How long have you been married to Kyle now?
Well, we've been married for one year. But
wow.
we've been together since 2013. So it's tough. It's tough. I basically would say we've been married for 10 years, but it's not.
It does feel that way to me as well. But it's like, it's not a new marriage anymore, but it's still a little new. And so I can see where you're like, you know, I want to set up these bookshelves. I want them to be a beautiful romantic thing. And I found this really funny.
It is pretty funny.
Like, because she says, I want to combine bookshelves. I think it's romantic, reflecting our shared love of reading. I was like, I've never thought of bookshelves as romantic, but you might be right about that. Yeah. I don't think you're wrong. It also reminded me of the scene in When Harry Met Sally, where Harry has like a blow up and he's really upset about something, and because I don't want to spoil anything, but he says like, just so you know, you're happy right now, but what you should be doing is writing your names in all of your books, because when you break up, you're gonna have to try and tease these all apart. And I was like, I remember when I watched this in the movie, I was like, who the hell would combine their books?
Yeah, that to me is a little bit of a crazy idea.
So I'm like, maybe Laura loves her partner more than we love our partner, because I'm like, I am not willing to mix books with Connor.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I mean, I guess mine is slightly different because Kyle isn't much of a reader, so he doesn't have many books. Right. But Kyle does have a small collection of books, but they're on a special shelf. Like, they're on just like a separate shelf, because originally they were kind of with my books. Like, pretty much all of his books are fantasy books. So I was like, when I had my books organized by genre, I was like, oh yeah, just throw your books in there, whatever, just add it to the stack. But there was a time where I was like, I don't want these on here anymore. They don't go with my books. Like, they're just slightly off. They're not ones that I chose. They're like mass market paperbacks. Like, just get them out of here. And so, yeah, we relocated them to a different shelf. So he has like a little small shelf that's just for his books. So that's about as far as I'd probably be willing to go.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, personally, we can just talk about ourselves for a sec. I don't want to mix my books with Connor's, because I don't see, I love that Connor is a reader. It was important to me. It has been historically, actually, now that I think about it, everyone that I've dated has been a big reader, because that's important to me. And it's such a fast and easy test, because whenever a guy is like, do you want to hang out? I'm like, yeah, let's go to a bookshop. And if they are not into that, it's like, what a clear litmus test. But actually, I'm just remembering that me and Connor's first kiss, this second time dating, because if people don't know, we dated a decade ago. This second time dating, our first kiss was in a Chapters. What? Really? Did you know that?
Why? We don't need to know the story, but why?
It was in a Chapters.
That's so funny.
It was so cute. Anyway. Whew. I was just reminiscing. I hate that. Let's stop doing that. Okay, so
get back to the present.
Get back to the present moment. I love that he's a reader, and I love that he has a lot of books, but his books to me have nothing to do with my books. I'm like, that's a different collection.
They're two separate entities.
Different goals. So I do think I like that we're mentioning this, because I think, Laura, you might be trying to make something work that can't work.
Yeah. Especially if all of his books are truly as ugly as you say.
Yeah, I was really picturing hideous books.
I don't even really know what to picture. Like, how can they all be bad?
Are books that bad? I don't know. But it might be like you're trying to make something happen that can't happen, and maybe it would be actually just a relief to you to remove some of that pressure from yourself. Like, you will still have a beautiful readerly relationship, even if you don't mix your shelves. So
because all the books will still be under the same roof. Like, you're still, you know, they could be next to each other. They could be two bookcases next to each other.
Yeah, so really, like, did you have some specific advice in mind?
Yeah, I did have some specific advice for if Laura really wants to make this happen. These are just like some ideas I came up with.
Yes.
And so I think one key thing is just how you organize the books. So if you are truly like mingling them together, maybe mixing it in so that the ugly ones are kind of amongst a lot of pretty ones, then you maybe won't see them. That's not really my advice, but that's just an idea I had just now. But another thing I think is organizing them by color is a very effective tool, because
this is one of mine.
It's a good way to hide things, because sometimes books like will just be lost in the sea of color if you do that. So that could be really effective if there's, you know, a decent amount of colors in his collection. If they're all just ugly like black hardcovers or something, I don't know what to do about that. But I guess another thing I came up with was, if they are a lot of hardcovers, and say they're like old hardcovers with ugly dust jackets, just take those dust jackets off. And
that was another core one of mine. I really agree with you. You can just take off dust jackets.
Because it's amazing. And I'll take some photos of my own books for the Instagram for this to show like how different they can look. And most of the time I don't really like hardcovers without dust jackets on, but for the aesthetic, I think it's worth it.
Yeah.
And, if you want to just like hang on to them somewhere so that you still have them, that's great. So those are my main ones. Another kind of edgy idea was to flip some of the books around so that they're pages out. Go with me here. I don't think this is a great idea, but it could work if you do it in a cool way. And if he doesn't mind all of his books being flipped backwards.
Yeah, I really agree with all of you. I think those are all good possible ideas. And you hit on two of mine as well, which were do a rainbow. Because with a rainbow, you no longer are really looking at each individual spine. You're just going with whatever color thing you're doing.
Yeah.
Or remove the dust jackets. Because without the ugly dust jacket, but obviously then the problem would be if they're paperbacks, you can't remove the dust jacket.
Yeah,
so
you'd have to like add something to them. Which you could also do. You could like wrap the outside of them in, I don't know, brown paper or fabric or
I've
something.
heard of people doing that. And I actually was on a website recently that was like selling really beautiful custom made dust jackets without the books.
I've definitely heard of this, yeah.
Yeah, like one of them was for Anne of Green Gables. And it's like, if you own the 8 Anne of Green Gables books, here are 8 dust jackets that you can wrap, and then all the spines align and look really beautiful. Cool. And I was like, that's really interesting. So that's another avenue you could go down. I wanted to say 2 things. One was on the just zooming out a little bit here. I just thought this was an interesting discussion because I can already imagine some people listening to this. I don't think most of our listeners will have this idea, but I can imagine some people who are like, Laura, you got to get over this. Like, books are not about the beauty of the books. Totally. Books are just about reading and stuff. And I think that that's not in good faith. Like, I think that books are multiple things, and a big part of what they are is objects. And if you have large collections of books, they are a beautiful thing to display. Yeah. And I have friends whose bookshelves are in like pride of place in their homes. Like you walk into a giant bookshelf. And so it is a structural thing. It is an architectural thing. It is a beauty thing. So Laura, I'm with you that I think prioritizing the aesthetics of it can actually be a fun part of owning books.
Totally.
So don't make anyone let you feel bad about that, because I'm with you.
Good point.
And the second thing though, it's kind of aside from that, but basically, I think you need to ask yourself,
here we go.
if the romance that you are seeing in it, if the theme of the romance, because she said the theme of the romance is a shared library, to reflect our shared love of reading. That was like why she wants to do this, right? The romance of it.
Yeah.
Is that ideal? Is that theme more important than the aesthetics? Because if that theme is, then just mix them. No one will care. And you can actually see this as a symbol of the relationship where you're like, look at this. We're two very different people, but it works together and we love each other and our books work. And here we are. This is our library. And even if it's not that aesthetic, you can kind of lean into it metaphorically as a symbol of your love.
Yeah, that's good.
So I think there's a way to have it be a little wonky, but actually that adds a lot of charm to it.
Yeah, and here's the thing we're not thinking about is how does the husband feel about all of your beautiful books being combined with his ugly books?
Yeah, maybe he's like, what? You no.
these are not right. Yeah, maybe he's feeling bad about that too.
Yeah, I think also like if he has a couple favorite books. This was like a really offshoot idea. I don't know if this is a little going over the top. I don't know your budget, Laura, okay? But if you've got a big budget, you could pick a few of his really favorite books and buy pretty editions of those books to have them as like face out books.
Because it does seem like he doesn't care. Based on what Laura said, it just seems like he doesn't care. So he would be probably happy with that and fine with that.
Well, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
But there you go. Laura, I wish you all the best. I think that it might not be possible to do this, but it might be. And
when in doubt, do a rainbow. Do a rainbow.
When in doubt, do a rainbow.
That applies to a lot of different situations.
Yeah, I don't know if we mentioned enough how much I think that having them separate is okay. Yeah. Like, my bookshelves are a whole thing that I spend hours and hours thinking about and looking at and tweaking. Connor's bookshelves are their own thing in a different room, and it's beautiful. When you walk into the guest room, there's a lot of books in there. They're Connor's books, and they're cool and they're different. And I think it's also really nice to just be able to go to your own book. So I don't think
Absolutely.
Maybe you're trying to
don't put too much pressure on it.
Yeah, maybe you're trying to make a square fit into a triangle or whatever they say.
Yeah.
It's okay if it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
Okay, this next one, this was a little stressful. This is from Jessica.
Hello, Ariel and Raylene. My name is Jessica, and I'm calling you from Melbourne, Australia. A few years ago, a friendly acquaintance in my hometown in the U.S. wrote a book. She has regional name recognition for her writing and presence in the media, all of which I have thoroughly enjoyed for many years. She sent me a copy of her book to review on all the usual platforms. I read it, and I absolutely hated it. I kept my reviews as vague as possible, but there was no way to disguise how much I disliked the book. And unfortunately, this review ended our relationship. Since then, I have been hesitant to review books written by friends and acquaintances, even when I am really excited for them. So should I just make it a rule not to review books written by people I know? Or should I go further and not even read books written by friends in case they ask my thoughts? I look forward to your answers. Thank you.
So, whoa.
Jessica, I'm scared.
Oh, Jessica, oh no. First of all, I'm really sorry. I don't think that you did anything ethically or morally wrong. I think it's unfortunate that it's the way that it went.
Yeah.
But I like that you're asking this question because you're like thinking ahead. You're like, okay, this unpleasant experience happened to me once.
Yeah.
I want to make sure it doesn't happen to me again. What are some strategies? And Jessica, I really relate to this problem. Raylene, usually I like to throw to you first.
I was going to say, you should start because I feel like you have more experience with this type of thing.
If you don't mind, I would like to start on this one,
and I'll just backpack on yours.
So basically, I have had this happen to me. I haven't ever lost a friendship because of it, because of my strategies. I believe I've been able to salvage some relationships here. So I knew that I was on rocky ground this one time. This was years ago. But a friend of mine published a book. And I wanted to support her. Yeah. And so I started reading the book. This was at a time when I still used Goodreads publicly, which when I look back on it, I'm like, what the hell was I doing? I don't understand why we all want to read so publicly. But anyways, that's besides the point. But I had marked on Goodreads that I was currently reading this book.
Okay.
And I started getting comments. And this one person, oh God, it's like burned into my brain. This one person commented, well, I hope that we can expect an honest review from you and that you won't be lying about whatever you say. And I was like, wow, this is so fascinating.
Yeah.
Because you're expecting things from me. I don't know why you're expecting things from me. I'm like, why do you think that in order to be a good reviewer, I need to be a bad friend, or in order to be a good friend, it means that I'm being a bad reviewer? Like, these things are not mutually exclusive necessarily. And I think when you expect people to be like, oh, I'm going to be a real reviewer, I'm going to be unbiased, I'm going to be completely objective, that's not real. It's not possible to be unbiased, and you have to just allow yourself to be biased, allow yourself to be subjective. So here are the facts, in my opinion, really.
Okay.
Number one, you cannot promise a positive review.
Yeah,
it's not going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen when you read that book. Number two, this is a very emotional time for your author friend. Like, they're publishing a book. They've been working on it for years. It's finally coming out into the world. They're nervous. They're scared. It's emotional. So that's fact number two. Fact number three, no matter how you slice it, you cannot be impartial or biased. So, here's my strategy. Don't read the book.
Yeah, I think that's a great strategy.
Because you cannot promise that you're going to like it, and therefore, as a friend, and here I am balancing friendship, as a friend, I think what you can do best of all is to promote your friend's book. And you can do that when you still haven't read it. And this is what I have done. I have, just because of my job, I have a lot of friends who publish books. I never read them at the beginning when the book is coming out. I am always promoting it by just saying, my friend's new book is out. It's about this. If you want to check it out, you can check it out, because that's honest. I'm telling you that it's my friend. I'm telling you that the book is out. I'm telling you that I'm excited. All those things are real. My review isn't actually that important. I think that my job is, as a buddy with a platform, to promote my friends' stuff that I'm excited about and be honest and real about how jazzed I am. I have then secretly read the book. And then if I don't like it, I'll just never tell you that I read it. And if I did like it, awesome. Yeah. Now, months later, maybe even a year later, I can start talking about it again because I actually read it and reviewed it. But this removes all pressure. So I also think that I don't think that it's very fair of friends who are authors to expect you to review stuff.
Definitely not. So, that's kind of part of my advice too.
Okay,
it's like,
well, let's shift over to you, Ray. What do you think?
I mean, I don't really have much solid advice to give. Yours is very, very much covers everything, I would say. But just like thinking about it from my perspective, and like I guess a different perspective is like, not everybody is as public of a figure as you are necessarily when reviewing a book. So it's kind of like, is the review just straight from you to your friend? In which case that feels very, very personal too, where it's the sort of the thing you're talking about, where maybe you should only tell them you read it if you liked it. So I do agree with that. Because it's otherwise it's just like one-on-one, like, oops, sorry, I didn't like your book. But so I think because of this, what I would do personally is like, I mean, I would only read books that are from like written by people I'm really close with. Like if you wrote a book, I would read it. I would read it no matter what. But I would also maybe like ask you ahead of time and expect you to tell me, like, is this a book you think I'll like? Like, is this a Raylene book? You know what I mean? Because I think knowing who you're recommending it to and who you're giving it to and being aware of that, like this is the friends, this is advice for the friend rather than for Jessica, but I think people need to be aware of that. Like if you're giving a book to someone, what if they're not going to like it, they're not going to like it. You might know that as their friend.
I could have my best friend in the world, like you could write a book that's like a true crime book. I'm probably not going to like it because I don't really like true crime. Right? But that doesn't mean I'm not going to support the hell out of it and promote it a lot and talk about it and let people know it's out. And thankfully you can do that work. You can do that friendship work of promoting a book without having to review it or read it yet. Like they're actually two different things. But to your point, like Jessica said that this was a friendly acquaintance that wrote the book, so it doesn't sound like it was a close personal friend that you could that you're not that. So I think
so it's kind of tough. I think in those kinds of situations I would just not agree to read it at all. Like even if they say, oh, hey, I wrote a book, I know you like to read, do you want a copy? You can say, sure, I'd love a copy. Might not read it. Like make it clear that you might not read it, and then you can kind of tell them you liked it if you did like it, and then if you didn't,
that has been my approach for a lot of things, where I'm just like, oh, I'm so slammed right now that I can't promise to read it, but I'd be so happy to promote it if they're actually my friend. But it's a really tricky line, because there has been lots of ugly situations where I have people I barely know, and then suddenly I get this message from them that's like, hey buddy, I'm wondering if you'd review my book. And I'm like, no, you can't use me when you want to use me. Like that's not how that works. So I don't think you owe everyone you know that's an author anything, but if you want to promote their book, I think there's a way to do that in a really friendly, happy, positive way that's like, yay, look, my friend just released this book. And they're getting the promotion with removing that pressure of you actually having to read it.
You know, that's good. I like that, because I think if they want you to review it, they have to be ready for the consequences. Like if that's the setup.
Completely agree. Completely agree. They cannot expect a positive review from you, but they can ask for you to mention the book, haul the book. And like I've had people who are really good at this, where they're like, hey, I have a new book coming out. Would you want a copy to maybe show on your Instagram stories or whatever? And I'm like, I can do that.
That's easy.
Of course I'd like to support you, right? That's a tricky one. But thanks for bringing that up, because I think it's a very interesting and kind of nuanced topic.
Totally.
And it does depend on the situation. Like there are certain people whose books, like you said, like if it's a close friend, I'll definitely be reading it.
And you don't have to shout it out on your podcast if you don't like it, you know?
No, exactly. All right. Well, now it's time to move on over. Oh, this was another little stressful one. Let's do this message from Tamar.
Hi, Raylene. Hi, Ariel. So, my bookish problem right now is that I read way too many books at a time. Like, I'm reading one and then another one interests me, so I pick it up, or like someone suggests for me to read something, and then I pick it up, or I'm like part of a lot of book clubs and reading so many at a time. But it's like stressing me out, and like I don't enjoy the books as much because I'm reading too many at a time. So I was just wondering how I could limit the amount I read, like maybe 1 or 2 at a time, or even 1 would be great so I can really engage in it. Yeah, so that's my bookish problem right now. So I'd love for your advice, and looking forward to hear it in the next episode. Have a good day or night. Bye.
So this message from Tamar. Oh boy.
I mean, this is another one I almost feel like you should start off, because this is another like Ariel-ish problem.
It's kind of an Ariel problem. I mean, the first thing I wrote down is this a problem?
Uh-oh, maybe
it's not a problem.
I think it is a problem because it stresses Tamar out.
Exactly. No, you're right.
I think when that starts happening, then it is a problem. You personally don't seem stressed out by having 20 books on the go, because that's just who you are. You've accepted it. And I feel like you also like let books go into your past much more easily than it sounds like Tamar does. Like as soon as she starts a new book, that other one is still like has a noose around her neck. Whereas with you, I feel like it's just kind of gone and forgotten.
I think you might be right about that.
So I think it's different.
I think you're right. I think it is different. However, my approach to this problem is actually trying to convince Tamar to take on my approach in this situation.
Okay, yeah.
Because I was really Tamar, this really caused me to do some deep thinking. I stared out the window at the shaking trees for quite a while here, thinking like, okay, it's me. I'm like, Tamar is me right now. Tamar is reading too many things at the same time, isn't finishing as much as she's starting. If I wanted to change that about me, how would I change that?
Yeah.
And I could not come up with a good strategy. I couldn't, because I think I'm too deep in.
Yeah,
I think I'm too
you're
deep
lost.
in, right? Like
I'm lost. Sauce.
I'm with Tamar in this strange and beautiful sea. But here's basically where I emerged. Okay. I was like, maybe it's fine. Maybe it's all fine. Yeah,
maybe it's fine.
Because it doesn't bother me. Years ago it did bother me. Because years ago I was like, I'm not finishing as much as I'm starting. I'm not like reaching the end points on a lot of things. Yeah. And I feel like I'm in the middle of a lot of things. Here's a couple of techniques so that maybe you can be more like me and feel chill about this. Yeah. Number 1, remember that you're following joy. The reason that you're picking up a new book is because you're excited. Yeah. I think it's like, and you know what? I think these things are not dissimilar.
Okay.
I love charcuterie boards.
Ooh. Okay? Let's turn. Let's go.
I'm really into a charcuterie board.
You like sampling all the different tasty snacks.
Exactly. Like I would every single day of the week have a charcuterie board before I'd have like a sandwich. I don't want everything prepackaged. I want to like pick this and then this and then this and then this. I'm like, I enjoy that experience of being like, now I want a little cheese. Now it's time for a little pickle, I think. That is, like, very much what I'm doing with reading. Where I'm, like, reading something and then I, like you, Tamar, like you said, like, I hear about a new book. Or my friend mentions a book and I have that on my shelf or whatever. And I, like, get excited and then I go and I start reading that. And the last thing's gone, baby. It's in the past now.
Yeah.
And I don't see it as a bad thing. I see it as me following joy. I'm like, wow, this is the thing I'm excited about now. I think that subconsciously, a lot of rules become things online on the online reading community. Like people like have certain expectations of themselves and they have certain goals other people are doing, so you feel like you're supposed to be doing it. And I'm like, imagine that you lived in a vacuum like in a little bit of a void or just in the 80s. Imagine you lived in the 80s where it's like still a very interconnected, fun time, but there's no internet.
Yeah.
Would your current style of reading bother you? Maybe not.
Right. When I think back to when I was a kid, I used to take out 10 books from the library at a time. And I think I was reading like a lot of them at the same time. But something changed in me. It's funny, actually, to bring it back around to like my style of reading and turning it into a food metaphor like what you did. I think I was thinking about it. I was like, wait, this is genius. So I think what my style of reading is more like each book is a meal. And I need to, you know, cook the meal, enjoy the meal, and then clean up after the meal for me to feel satisfied. And that is eating or reading the whole book. Sorry, not eating the book.
Eating the book?
Eating the whole book from start to finish before moving on to the next one. I feel like as soon as I'm reading a second book at the same time as I'm reading another one, like even if that's just an audiobook that I happen to be listening to at the same time, that's like a wheel of brie that's about to go bad or something. It's like, I need to eat it. I need to eat it fast. I need to get it out of the way before my next meal. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I need to wrap things up. I need the dishes to be done and put away before I can start the next meal. And that's just like how I am in life as well. So I feel like it makes sense. It does make sense. It makes sense for our personalities.
This actually makes a lot of sense. Right? Because like, for example, and you would know this if you listened to the podcast for a while, but Raylene, like, you're a bit of a minimalist. I don't think we would call you like a minimalist.
Definitely
but, like,
not. But
you like play around with that idea a lot.
The sensibilities of a minimalist. Yeah.
And often I'll be like, what's going on? And Raylene's like, sold our skis. We don't need them. And I'm like, yep. You're right.
I'm always getting rid of stuff. It's true.
Raylene's always purging and like trying to make things neat. And I'm like, I respect it. I think it's great. And that lines up with like, you start something, you want to finish it.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm like, look, I mean,
look at all this cheese.
Now. I bought this new thing. I'm into this new thing. And I'm just like a little bit more flouncy. So I think it's just different reading styles. And I think there is a possibility that Tamar is trying to force herself to be a type of reader that she's just not. And so maybe accepting that you are into this kind of reading, that you're like me. It's okay to be like me. I'm happy. I swear. It could be okay. However, you did say, like, you actually did ask. You said it's stressing me out. I don't think I'm enjoying the books as much because you're doing the thing and the thing. And so I did have one little idea that was rewards.
Oh, okay.
This is going to be playing into my goals for 2024.
Oh.
And it's a new little technique that I'm going to be trying out. So I'm not going to go too far into that part, but perhaps you could do a thing where every time you finish a book, you get a certain type of reward. And that could be a trip to the bookshop. It could be, I don't know. It could be whatever makes you happy. And a little reward might motivate you to like get to the end of a book more often. That's all I could think of though, Ray. What about you?
Okay.
Like, how it helps you to actually get to the end of the book?
I mean, just the feeling of being stressed out is something I try to avoid as much as possible. And I find that, being in the middle of, if it's more than 2 books, like 2 I can handle. I don't love it, but like if it's more than 2, then there's a problem. Because I love the feeling of finishing things, like we definitely talked about before. That to me is like a 10 out of 10 feeling. And that's actually something I wrote down in my advice for Tamar, is that I know that starting a new book is a 10 out of 10 feeling, but being in the middle of 5 books, that feels like a 1 out of 10 feeling. If like based on what Tamar is giving us in that message, it sounds like she really doesn't like it. And so what I think is maybe a useful tool is to, just focus on the books that you're actually reading, because obviously you can't physically be reading 5 books at a time. So there's going to be moments where you're maybe reading 1 book or 2 books more than the others. And I think that you should just put those ones aside, like truly just put them aside. Maybe even have a special little table for your like books that I'm kind of reading but not really reading, and so you can focus in on 1 or 2. So if you might have 5 like on your docket, but maybe just ignore some of them for a little while and finish, focus on 1 or 2, finish them, and then go back to the others. Because I do feel like having too many on the go, like if you're truly bouncing between 5 different books at a time, that does sound unenjoyable, and that sounds like not a fun way to read. I feel like letting yourself kind of put some of them down, even if it's just for a little while, might be the best technique, because that's kind of what I do when I start if I start reading too many books at a time, I need to just focus in on one. I just need to finish one of them, because if you're constantly in the middle of all of them, it's going to take you a lot longer to get to the end of one. And I feel like finishing a book, like I said, it's a 10 out of 10 feeling. So get yourself out of that sea and just like try to finish up one of them.
That's so interesting. Yeah. It's true, because when I think about it, I don't like, excuse me, like right now, I don't even know how many books I'm in the middle of. I only think of myself as being in the middle of the one I currently am reading.
Yeah, you kind of let them go.
So I'm not giving those other ones my brain space, actually. I've just sort of moved, I've transitioned to the next book, and I could transition back, but I'm only in one at a time. So I can see how this would be stressful if you actually do feel like you're in multiple things
and I almost feel like,
time.
Talking about Goodreads before, I think could be part of it too. Like the idea of tracking your reading is that like you have these on your currently reading shelf.
Yes, I used to find that so stressful, right? Because it doesn't reflect the way I read at all.
Exactly.
And I would get to the point where there was like 9 books on there. And one of them was a book I'd started like 7 months ago. I think you're totally right. I actually had written down that a physical reminder or a physical practice might work well here. Basically, I was thinking like every book that you're reading, you have out like on your night table or on your desk or whatever where you read. And when you're like, oh, I'm curious about this other book, maybe you have to implement a practice of putting the other one back
on the shelf.
Back on the shelf. And like that's like a little ritual of being like, I'm accepting that I'm moving on, and I might come back to you someday, maybe I'm not, but like I am metaphorically and physically putting you back on the shelf and moving on to the next thing. And maybe that will actually stop you from doing it, because you're like, no wait, I don't actually want to put this one back on the shelf. I want to keep reading it. That other one can wait.
I think that's good. I think it's all about psychology.
You think it's good?
Here. Yeah.
You think we did good?
I think so. Lots of different things to think about there, but I hope that helped.
Yeah, I hope that helped. All right, let's move on to our next message. This one comes from Kat.
Hi, Ariel. Hi, Ruben. I wanted to get some advice on a problem I'm having with my book clubs. I'm a part of 2 book clubs, and every time I'm assigned a book to read, I no longer want to read it. But I still want to participate in the book clubs and show up and hang out with my friends, but I feel kind of like a loser when I don't read the book. So is there any advice you can give me to kind of power through or work through this bookish problem? If you have any tips, I would greatly appreciate it.
Oh, Kat.
Yes.
We've been here.
Yeah, honestly happens to me all the time.
So the main problem, there's kind of 2 problems. Number 1, Kat is in 2 different book clubs, and her troubles are kind of doubled, double trouble, Kat, because every time you're assigned a book, you no longer want to read it.
Yeah. Literally and me. And us. I mean, we both do this.
Us.
Yeah.
The first thing I wrote down was, we stopped doing book clubs for this very reason.
Yeah.
So basically, we used to host a book club here on Books Unbound. I think we would do 3 or 4 a year.
Yeah.
And there was so much of the process that we really liked. We liked picking a theme and like picking the 5 or 6 books people would vote on. We loved watching people vote on the books. We loved the live shows and we didn't do live shows. We would record an episode with voice clips that people would send in with their thoughts and their questions. I really enjoyed recording those episodes. Yeah. Those episodes were so fun, and I think they were good episodes. But the second the book was picked, Raylene and I didn't want to read it anymore.
And they were all books we were excited to read. Like, oh, I can't wait to read these books.
We chose the books. We put them on the list. People didn't force us to do anything. But the second that a book won, we were like, I don't want to read this anymore. So we really feel you, Kat. Like, we feel the same way. What was our technique? Stop doing book clubs.
Yeah.
Because we're like, there's no way to do it where it doesn't feel like homework. And it feeling like homework was what was making it suck.
It does. I know. Well, wouldn't it be so cool if you could do a book club where everybody just shows up and talks about what they're currently reading or like what they read most recently, and that's what you discuss? It's like, let me tell you about this book I'm reading. You might not have read it, but let's just like, let me tell you about it. I think that's a more interesting book club to me. And honestly, that's kind of what I do with my friends that I have a book club with. It's like the loosest, goosiest book club ever. Because it would start out, there was just 3 of us and we all worked together. So we saw each other every day and we would just like read a book and then meet up for coffee after work or whatever and just like talk about what we've read. So it was never like, but that was a lot of fun. I don't know how we managed to do that in a way that made sense and was fun, because the moment that we got a couple extra people and started having more like official kind of sit down meetings, I just like wouldn't read the book. And there was one person who truly just never read the book but showed up to have a good time, and that was fine. We were totally fine with that. And there were a lot of times where I wouldn't finish the book because I wasn't interested in it, and I'm like, I'm not going to force myself to read something I don't want to read. So I think that's a technique as well, is just accepting that maybe sometimes you don't have to read the book, but you can still show up and have a good time with your friends. Like if these are people you enjoy being around and they enjoy having you around, they're not going to care if you read the book or not.
True.
The thing is, you just have to be okay maybe having the book spoiled for you or not understanding what's going on a little bit. Like you have to just be okay with that. And if everyone else is okay with that, then whatever. That's kind of, I like to think go with the flow. I don't like to force myself to do anything I don't want to do, first of all, but mainly I like not to read things I don't want to read. And that's something that I think everyone should implement. Don't.
Yeah.
You know, if there's no actual reason for you to read it, like it's not school, no, like, you know, you don't have to. Nobody's paying you to read this book. You're just, you're just doing it for fun. And if it's not fun, don't do it.
Yeah. I mean, I agree, because that's why we stopped doing the book clubs. We were like, this isn't fun anymore. We're so stressed out.
Yeah.
And it's like getting in the way of our joy and of our podcast. We were like, let's just stop doing it. We can do other things instead. And here we have these new episodes that we love doing so much more. Yeah. So you got to go with the flow. I think I wrote down a couple of things. First of all, can you sneakily suggest books you've already read?
Ooh, that's a good one.
So if they're like, it's time to pick the next book club book, and you're like, what if we read Twilight? And you're like, I already read Twilight. And so when you show up, even if your memory is a little bit dodgy with the book, you're still going to basically remember it and have things to say and opinions. It can be more recent. I just picked Twilight because that's a universally read book. But like any book that you've read, you could suggest and really push for. Or if your book club votes on things, like vote on one you've already read kind of thing. Okay, my next idea was, and where the heck did it go? Oh yes, here it is. My next idea was setting up reading dates with people in the club. Since Kat said that the social time is their favorite element of the book club. Like, you like getting to hang out with everyone. So I'm like, this is even more reason to hang out with everyone. Like once or twice a month in the lead up to the book club meeting, if you met up with people to read and you're like, or you could like start a movement with your book club. Say that your book club is called Windy Tree Book Club. You could start the Windy Tree After Hours Reading Society where you just start reading. Like you're like, I'm going to be at this cafe from 4 to 9. That seems like a long time, actually, but whatever. From 7 to 9. 4 to 9. If anyone wants to drop by, I'm going to be here reading our book club book. And if you want to come by, that'd be really fun. We'll read in like happy, cozy silence with a coffee. That could be fun if you can slice that into your schedule.
Yeah.
My next idea, can you transition to a movie club? Because maybe just being a part of a book club isn't working, actually. Maybe you can just be part of a movie club. Because a movie club, that's a 2-hour commitment at most for the whole month. You watch the movie, you show up. It's so much easier. And if the thing that you are enjoying is just hanging out with your friends and talking about art, maybe everyone would be like, thank God that Kat suggested this, because I always feel so stressed about finishing the book. Those were some of my ideas. I also, though, really did have the idea written down of the same thing that you said, where it was like, maybe you can transition to your book club where it's not about a specific book. It's just about what you've been reading lately.
Yeah, because another thing I find that's difficult for our book club personally is that we have such different reading tastes. Like there's not a lot of overlap. And I feel like we've almost read all of the books that fit into all of our reading tastes that we all like own and want to read already. Like that's just gone. Like at the beginning we read like Shirley Jackson, and we read The Day of the Triffids by John Wyndham. We read And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. Like we had a lot of fun choices that were like had good overlap, and now we're truly like, gosh, I don't even know. And so it makes it harder to pick a book, not only, but then there's always maybe going to be someone who's like, I actually kind of don't want to read that book. And but I mean, that's not necessarily Kat's problem. The problem is as soon as it's assigned, she stops wanting to read it. So I do think just trying to avoid reading books with those friends might be the best way. I do feel like book clubs are just a little bit of a flawed idea. I mean, if you're not a mood reader, I guess it's fine. Like some people like being told what to read because maybe they don't know about books. Like I think my mom would really fit in well with a book club because she's like, I don't know what books, I don't know. What are these books? Just tell me what to read. And but for me and for a lot of people I'm sure listening, like we already have an idea in our head of like, this is what I want to read. And then as soon as you're told what to do, it's like, no. So I think just setting yourself free a little bit. And like you said, transitioning to a movie club or something, or just meet up with your friends to like do crafts, or like there's so many other things you could do if you're willing to like let the book club idea go. Because it is a beautiful idea, like meeting up with your friends to talk about books.
I've always wanted to be a part of a book club. Like I romanticize it so much about the like discussions you'll have and all of these sorts of things, but I think that actually it would just remind me of school. Someone wouldn't end up reading it. Then you just spend a lot of the time summarizing it. Or it would be me who didn't finish it. And I'd be trying to pretend that I finished it. Or like just have to be like, I didn't finish it. And then I feel bad. And like all of those actual realistic emotions. I'm like, I actually don't think I would be a good member of a book club. But I think I could be a great member of a movie club. Or of a crafting club. So maybe there's a way to transition it to make it feel a little better. You've got this, Kat. Well, it's time to transition to our final message, which came from Diana.
Hello. My bookish problem is that I am obsessed with reading in the early morning time. It's just so peaceful and quiet. And when you read in the morning for like a good, like long time, like an hour, like the whole day is just so fantastic. But I've been in a situation where I can't really wake up in the morning and read every day anymore. So I was wondering if you have any advice on how to get yourself to read when the circumstances aren't like your perfect ideal scenario. Like I would love to be able to read at nighttime when I get home from work, but I find myself, I don't know, the vibe is off. So I don't know. Have you guys had that? Thanks.
Okie dokie, Diana. I love that we recognize a lot of these people because these are all from our patrons. If you want to submit a message, we will link to the Patreon down below, patreon.com/booksunbound podcast. Or is it just Books Unbound? You'll find it.
Yeah, it's on there somewhere.
It's on there somewhere. But yeah, we know all these names because these are all our beautiful patrons that are always supporting us. Diana loves reading in the morning. She loves it. She can't get enough. But she can't always read in the morning, which is very realistic, right? Like you can have an ideal time to read, but life gets in the way.
Yeah.
So do you have any advice, Raylene, on how to read when circumstances aren't perfect? Your perfect ideal scenario when the vibe might be a little off.
I know, when the vibe is off. My advice is to adapt, to be a chameleon. So I'm just thinking of my own like personal experiences. And for me, like things that stop me from reading a lot of times are distractions within my home. And that can be like seeing that there's a couple of dishes that need to be put away or whatever, or seeing my cat looking for attention, or my husband looking for attention. And sometimes just having that moment where you're like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go to a park and be by myself. Yeah. And then nothing can bother me. Or something as simple like what I often actually would do like this summer is go into my backyard, pop these headphones on, put some instrumental music on, and just read. Because it's like, I'm shut out from the world. It's obvious that I just want some alone time, and so nobody bothers me. And so I think that finding a place and a circumstance that you can kind of feel safe to read and feel like you have this moment. I mean, also setting a specific amount of time potentially could be useful, because I can understand the feeling of being like, oh, I have so much to do, I don't have time to read. But if you set yourself like half an hour or, 45 minutes. Like, give yourself a very specific time frame. Set a timer on your phone if you need to, where it's like, okay, at the end of this timer, like, once I'm done this 45 minutes of reading, then I'll go do the laundry and make dinner or whatever. Yeah. So I think that finding yourself maybe a different place or a specific time frame might be the best way to do it, because I totally understand that feeling of, oh, I've worked all day. Now I'm home. I have all these other things to do. There's no time to read. Yeah. But I think if you can like give yourself permission to read for a specific amount of time at a certain amount of time, maybe that's useful. Maybe that's not like the best vibe, but I think where you're choosing to read could be the thing that saves the vibe. Like, light a candle, turn your Christmas tree on right now. I find reading in the living room where the Christmas tree is to be very satisfying. So I think just giving yourself like a cozy space, a cozy environment, and allowing yourself to have that time to read is, be forgiving of yourself. That's my advice.
I love this problem because I really relate to it. I don't actually feel like I have my perfect reading vibe yet in my house. I think it's just because there's so many people in the house all the time that I don't find it very peaceful. But I find that there are certain things that you can always have. So you've said, like, there's such great vibes happening in the morning, but those same vibes aren't happening in the evening. And I'm like, okay, but there are some conditions that you can always control. For example, there could be a robe, like a really comfortable, big, comfy robe that you always wear when you're reading. And then you can start to train your brain to be like, oh, it doesn't matter if it's the morning or the nighttime. I've got my comfy robe on. The other one that I had was music, which you just mentioned. Yeah. Like, if you start every time that you read, you've got to basically Pavlovian train yourself, okay? Yeah. If every time that you read, you put on, like, instrumental Queen's Gambit soundtrack, Anne of Green Gables soundtrack, whatever. If you start, like, with specific songs that you really like and have that always playing, it doesn't matter when it is, your brain is going to be like, oh, it's reading time. This is this is the music I listen to when I read. So there are certain conditions that you can have no matter the time of day and kind of no matter where you are. Because you could be in your car and you could put on that music and it would help you like kind of get into the right mood.
Yeah, I love that.
I really like your suggestion of going out, because sometimes it's just that you're at home. And even though home can be the cozy place, home can also be the admin tasks hell place. Where you're like, okay, well, it's never going to be cozy here because everywhere I look is reminders of things I have to do. Yeah. And I really do think that it's okay to be like, I can't read at home usually. So I'm just once a week, like, commit to going to a cafe or going to the beach or going somewhere that is like local to you, that is easy to get to. The other thing I would say is, this is advice I gave to another person in another one, but I think really could relate to Diana, and it's habit stacking your way to freedom, baby. Yeah. So basically, habit stacking is when you already have a habit that you do every day or every other day or whatever, like something you do very regularly, that you can tack on a new habit you want to form to it. And by attaching them, it makes it easier to find the time of day to do it. And I think, if you have a commute to work, this would be a thing where you're like, okay, I already have to commute. Like, there's no way around it. I'm already commuting, whether that's on a train or in your car. And then making sure that you're always reading during that. I think that would help to find a new time in your day that is really nice. Or if you're like, you know what, this is what I would do. I'm going to do experiments. Like, do a week of experiments where you're like, okay, for a week, I'm going to try listening to an audiobook every time when I make dinner. Or for a week, I'm going to try reading at 9 p.m. and see what happens. I'm just going to stick to it for a week. Do all these little experiments. Not only do I think it will be fun for you, and if you say to your partner or to whoever lives in your house, if you say like, I'm doing an experiment this week where every time I cook dinner, I listen to an audiobook. Yeah. They're going to be like, play along. They're going to be like, totally. Oh, okay, no, I can't bother her right now because she's doing her experiment. I feel like that could work, and it's only through experimenting and trying to get out of your usual patterns. Because I think right now, you obviously have certain patterns in place that are not allowing you to read. So maybe you just have to push yourself to try some new little patterns. Nothing complicated, but something that could help you figure out. Also, okay, your car could be a happy place for you. because what I've noticed is whenever I'm in my car, I feel very nice and solitary. So even if it just, I've done this before, where I'll get in my car, I'll drive 5 minutes away from my own home, sit in the car, and read for a bit.
Whoa.
And then I'm like, this was a nice little cave, and now I'm ready to go back home.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
I love that.
That was mainly when there was like a lot of hectic crap going on at home because of renovations, and I was like, this is not a peaceful place. But now I don't feel that I have to do that, but it worked at the time, so maybe that could be
totally. I can relate to that. I've definitely had moments where it's like, I am not feeling cozy and happy here, so I would just go like to the library or whatever and read there. And sometimes just getting out of your own house is the key.
I hope we helped Diana. I really do. I hope we helped anyone listening / anyone who sent us a clip. Thank you guys so much for sending us these clips. We're doing them in order. So, if you have sent a clip, I'm sure that we will. We can't promise to reply to every single one, but we're trying to get to as many as we can. And we really are grateful to all of you for participating and sending stuff in because it's so much fun. We absolutely love these episodes. So, if you enjoyed this episode, maybe consider sharing it. We never ask that, but heck, maybe, I don't know, it would be nice. A little Christmas present to us, a share. And we are now going to go record our Patreon mini podcast, The Movie Tub. So if you would maybe are interested in hearing what we've been watching lately, you can check that out on our Patreon. Thank you so much for listening, and we will talk to you next week.
Bye.